Hi there! Today I'll look at this classic controller pro for the Wii, which is a knockoff controller, and the reason why... and also, sorry I won't be able to compare this to the original classic controller pro, but... and the reason why I cannot do this is because, well, if you live somewhere where we hadn't had quite a good adoption, and it means that there are no older controllers to compare against, but absent still Wii accessories that I can compare those with. So I will be looking at this, and this is a wireless controller, even though it has a wire. And if you don't know how does this work on a Wii, you take your Wiimote and just connect it over here, and then you can use this completely wireless, and all the communication is done via this Wiimote. There isn't any option to connect this in any other way. I'm not sure if those will work with those classic consoles that Nintendo showed in recent years. I think not. Those are a little bit more finicky than standard controllers, but well, it has exactly the same port, but I'm not sure about that. Let me show you, because this controller has quite a standard set of buttons: Dpad, 2 analog sticks, 4 face buttons, 3 additional buttons, and the trigger and the bumpers. It doesn't have the clickety analog sticks, but neither did the original controller. The size is perfectly the same. It's really it's hard to distinguish them apart from lack of the Nintendo logo, and also some of the buttons are, you know, not exactly center, but the style is exactly the same. Let me show you firstly the way the analog sticks works on here. Okay, so here's our benchmark. This is a nunchuck, so it has a very small dead zone. Let me show you up front, and then if I push it roughly halfway, maybe 2/3, it will shift into the run. Here's the classic controller, and there is quite a bigger dead zone, and then in roughly 1/4, maybe 1/3, it shifts into run. So this is how much you can that's run. So roughly all of this here. So it's very hard to actually pinpoint the moment when you are actually walking. Okay, so there you have it. Allow me to show you this on a graph that I made. I actually previously made a graph with, you know, 2 analog sticks, comparing those two, but it was strangely looking like 2 pair of boobs, so I decided against it, because, you know, I'm not up to what the YouTube algorithm is at this moment, so I don't want to take my chances. So let me show you this, the OG one. So let's call it this one, because that's the only Nintendo device I can compare this, because the sizes are exactly the same. The OG one has a very small dead zone. That's the black bar here. It has a quite bigger, because I tried to fault it a little bit more. It has a quite a bigger dead zone. Maybe this part is too long. I should reduce this maybe a little bit. So let's call it something like this. So this is where it ends. So that's the where the analog hits the plastic. So, and I think the difference is quite smaller between the let's say running animation, which isn't 100%, because it rarely is in the games where you hit the 100% let's say throttle the position on the analog stick. So I think the 100% will be somewhere around here, just before the plastic. And also the running, it is a lot more finicky on this knockoff controller. For example, in this game, the Harvest Moon, it's harder to do the walking animation. That's game dependent. You could have quite a bit of problems, because some games require this the precision of the analogs to sneak. So you that could be quite a bigger challenge than on official remote. But apart from this, Talking about so that's the analog sticks. The thing is the D-pad is a little bit weird because I will have to show you like so. You can press it completely down and you cannot feel it exactly clicking and moving as opposed to the D-pad on the Wiimote, because you know, if you change the position of your finger, it still moves. So it's a bit more precise in terms of feedback. But at the same time, what was weird for me, you in this position you can still move your character or cursor or whatever. It still works even though there is barely any movement here. It was really weird. So the D-pad doesn't feel right, but it works perfectly well. I tested it quite a bit. So that's what I noticed. Those buttons are clickety buttons, so like here they are quite a bit more noisy. So that's that's the difference. But those face buttons are quite okay. They're fine. You could compare those against those two. But those were, if I understand this controller correctly, those are a bit more noisier. But they feel really well, and they are just fine. You know, I was complaining a little bit about the 8-bit do that it has a little bit hard buttons to press. This is perfectly fine. Oh, one more thing about the analog sticks. I played for a little bit longer, so as compared to this one, this feels a little bit looser, so you don't have to put as much force here as here. I guess that they adjusted the spring, so it's a little bit harder to maneuver, so that may solve the problem with the dead zone and the precision, because you know you have to put quite a bit more force, but at the same time it could become tiring. So after a little bit over an hour, I kind of felt something like you know, tired fingers. That was a bit weird. And also comparing the triggers, those are, yeah, as you can hear, they feel exactly, you know, if you felt those knockoff trigger buttons, they are exactly the same. The C button on here is very quiet, a bit more pleasant, but the Z button is clickety, just like the trigger button. This sounds a little bit lower quality, and the bumper is a bit quieter, but not exactly, you know, the quality that Nintendo do. Also, one more thing, the cable. If you are planning to use this is a very nice high quality cable. As you can see, it's a bit worn over time. This isn't exactly right. The thickness is exactly the same. The connector looks really nice and so on. This is nicely white and things like that. But you know, you can feel the quality. There's quite a bit more rubber here. This feels plasticky. If you bend it to the shape, you know, it can conform to this shape. I still have a problem straightening it out how it came to me in a box, and this is a very nicely made cable, so it's far more pleasant. But apart from this, for a controller that costs currently roughly $8, I cannot find any actual problems with this. It feels, the face buttons feel really pleasant. The D-pad is what I didn't expect. It is precise, even if it doesn't feel quite well. The analog sticks, they're fine. They're just, you know, they're not perfect. You saw the dead zone. It's a bit bigger, and the bumpers and the triggers are a bit too clickety for my liking. But you know, if you play on headphones, you barely will notice this. So for a knockoff controller, it's perfectly fine. I like the rubberized tips, just like on the original one. They did quite a lot of work. So let me try and disassemble this set and show you the differences around how this exactly looks inside. let's quickly start with the nunchuck. So it has a tri-wing screws inside, only two. What it only has here are those two buttons. There is no click in the analog stick. As you can see here, only a connection and a chip, and that's probably an accelerometer that they are using. So the rubber is quite nice. We will be looking at this in a moment when I will open the knockoff one. And it has standard Phillips screws, so you don't really need any other screwdriver, but it has still quite a lot of screws here. So let me try and remove this. Okay, I think, yeah, I have it all. And looking at this is, I think that's silicone, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that this is a bit rubberized. Let's call this an older technology, but this is quite nice. I really like this. Inside it exactly looks like any kind of knockoff PS1, PS2 controller, things like that. Except for those, I think, silicone. Oh, yeah, the board cracked. Maybe in the transport. Apart from those silicone, yeah, those are silicone buttons. So what you normally would get is something closer to this, what Nintendo have here. And yeah, because those are transparent, so this is also visible. And again, silicone D-pad, silicone buttons. I kind of miss the size of this ball here, because if it would be a little bit bigger on the D-pad, it could mean that the D-pad would be actually closer to what Nintendo have. So this ball could be a bit bigger for my liking, so it would be more pleasant to use as a D-pad. So looking at the board, again, silicone buttons, blob chip, some connection, and that's all. They don't have anything else. I was a little bit curious if they have a facility to have the click in the analog sticks, because I was thinking that this may come from another controller too, but from what I can see, nothing like that. So it is very simple, as you can see, only small blob chip and those silicone. Yeah, those are really cool, and the quality on the buttons themselves, that's maybe why they feel so good. But at the same time, those are very clickety buttons, so a little bit too noisy. What you normally would have on a PS1, 2 or something like that, PlayStation controller knockoff, you would have pads like this instead of those buttons, but they wanted to replicate exactly what it was in the classic controller. That's a classic Pro controller for the Wii, so buttons like so. And also there is a version of this, the classic controller, and that means that those buttons, so the trigger and the bumpers are located like so, like on the original classic controller, and the cable doesn't go through the back, it comes from the front of the controller, if that makes sense. I mean, that's the only difference basically between those controllers, but this form factor is far better for me. So, well, I guess that they made it quite well. I mean, it's very simplified, but just it does the thing it should do, and it only, there is absolutely no serviceability here, but I'm quite happy with this. So I guess that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys next time.